Hi there, welcome back to another episode of the Figly podcast. Our guest today is Areli Martinez Pizano, who is a recent graduate from the Graduate School of Education at Penn, specializing in human development. She currently works as a program assistant at the Greenfield Intercultural Center. In this episode, we begin with Areli sharing her experience applying to college and figuring out what she wanted to major in. We discuss the challenge of majoring in something that you're interested in versus something that is conventionally more marketable. We then talk about manifesting motivation and about the responsibilities that come with being an older sibling in a first-generation low-income household. Stay tuned for this and more on this episode of the Figly podcast. Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Figly podcast. Today, your hosts are Peter and Betsbeth, and our guest today is Areli. Betsbeth, since it's your first time hosting, do you want to do a quick introduction?
Yeah, so I'm a sophomore in the college. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and I'm studying neuroscience.
Awesome. And then our guest today, Areli, do you want to do a short introduction?
I was born in Mexico City, but then left when I was 5 years old, along with my sister and both of my parents. We went to Fresno, California, and that's where I basically grew up. I am like low income, first gen. My parents didn't finish high school. Later on, my parents had two of my siblings, younger brothers, so I was basically the oldest in my family, and I had to kind of navigate on my own in a sense, just with translating basic stuff, either whether that's like medical forms or like school like related forms. And so that's mostly my background.
What was your experience like applying to college first? You went to UCLA, right, for undergrad?
Yes.
And then what was like that experience like? And then like now that once you like did your master's at Penn.
So the beginning part, I feel like, yes, trying to figure out this like process of how to get financial aid, and like, which I'm sure a lot of like Figly students also could like resonate with that, not knowing how to like even apply to FAFSA, or like if their parents have the right documents, the tax forms and all. It's a very overwhelming process when you're like the first one trying to do it. And I didn't know whether if I could apply to schools outside of California. So that kind of and I wasn't sure like where, like I had no one to really guide me and tell me like, oh, you could apply like to an Ivy League, outside of, California. You don't have to stick around here, And but I really just like kind of told myself, like, okay, like I don't know, like I'm just trying to like navigate where to apply to college. I'm just gonna stay here just because this is the only place I know, in a sense. I feel the entire time I was like, oh, I want to make sure I don't mess up, because this is like either if like, oh, I'm not gonna get accepted because my application like was wrong, or because, oh, I'm not gonna get help financially because I completed this application wrong, or I didn't even complete it at all. It was definitely having to like, it was just overwhelming stress, and then my parents couldn't really help me because obviously the language barrier was there, and they were honestly they were working so much too, so they didn't even know what was going on with me, in a sense. And so I honestly, I feel like most of the time I was just winging it too. I'm like, I hope I found some of the resources and the answers, but I'm like, I hope like this is all correct, like Jesus take the wheel, like we'll see what happens.
You made it though, right? You made it.
Yeah, I made it. Obviously, I was able to everything I guess I did correctly, but no, it was definitely a lot of like research to do. And I guess it was just it's just a lot of like uncertainty of whether I was doing things correctly, and yeah, also like uncertainty of like applying like here to go to Penn and the masters, and like that opened up like a different challenge of in itself, different from applying to UCLA. I guess being also like Figley and low income, Figley, having the opportunity for financial aid to cover like my undergrad, I wish I could have like, maybe studied something more, like I don't need more schooling for this, just because more schooling requires more money. And I guess if I gotten something more like, if I studied something more like professional career wise, it would have been like easier for me to just come right off like undergrad and go straight into the workforce and start earning money. And yeah, especially for my family since I'm the oldest. So yeah, and yeah.
I also wanted to talk about just like you looking back, like the whole experience of like looking back, reflecting on what you could have done better, and like you saying that you should have like studied something that was more like marketable, if that makes sense. Like I also hear like a lot of like students Figley students who are just like, I wish we like studied like XYZ, or I wish I did this before going to college, or I did this like during college, so that like after graduation like everything would be easier for them. But I think that also when I like look back, I'm like, at the time I made like the best decision from like what information I had. And then I feel like that gives me like I feel like I'm still like regretful in some sense for like not making the right decision. But I think also like looking back, I think that probably was like the best decision I could make back then. But also, yeah, I wanted to ask you in terms of now you finishing your master's. Now you're like at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully at the end of the tunnel. What is it like just like looking forward into the future?
Well, I feel like it's always been this looming question over my head, like, what am I gonna do? What's the next thing? What's the next chapter of my life? Do I want to continue schooling, or do I just want to go into the workforce? Because in a sense, like, I feel like I never truly knew what I wanted to do in life. And yeah, I studied psychology in undergrad and minor in education, and my master's is human development, which is more like an intersection of like psychology and education, and just how like external and internal factors affect a child's development and how they learn. So it's been very like child developmental focus in a sense, I guess, and just with the education lens. But I think right now, just with I had a grad internship, which I currently work now as a program assistant at the Greenfield Intercultural Center, and that really allowed me to see this new sphere, I guess, of education. I knew, like, because I've always been focused at K through 12, but now I'm like, in higher ed, and that really, like, working in this space, like, really fascinates me and like intrigues me, and like I'm very like passionate about the work too. And so I think what's next, or what my heart is telling me to do next, is to apply into like a higher education setting and do like student affairs, student facing career. Because and it's interesting too, because I was faced recently with that decision, because I did apply to a PhD program just to see, and I did get in. And
oh, awesome! Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, and it was a PhD in developmental psychology, which was what I did like and wanted to do during undergrad. But now I was like, is this still what I want to do? Because I was definitely grappling with that, like, like, oh, more schooling, and like, oh, maybe I should get to work and start earning money to pay off these loans and help my family. But also I'm like, okay, Areli, is this really what you also want to do? Like 5 years is a commitment.
5 years is a long commitment.
It is a commitment. And yeah, and like my parents are always like, they always support me. They're like, Areli, like you do what you want to do, what you're passionate about. Like, don't worry about us, we'll be okay. And I know I'm always like, but I want to help you guys too. So I know they always want what's best for me. And then now it was getting to like really just reflect on that opportunity and whether I wanted to pursue that. I ended up rejecting it. So I was like, I don't think that's what my heart is telling me to do. I feel like I want to pursue higher ed and just be start working at a professional setting, and that's in a student-facing role. So currently applying to jobs. That's where I'm at.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I think also I wanted to go back to something that you've been saying, or that's been a recurring theme. Essentially, I feel like a lot of Figly kids also have a lot of different forces that are pulling them just in different directions, where for people it's not as simple as a choice because you are pulled from different directions, whether it be like family, finances, like do you want to do more schooling, or do you want to like actually get like a paying like job where you're able to like send money maybe like back home to take care of like your parents or like family and just like everything else. I think I want to like dive like deeper kind of into that because I feel like that's maybe like internal conflict that a lot of like students start to face once they like are seniors in college, whether or not they want to start like doing like grad school, or maybe they're seniors in high school, like if they want to like go to college or just like start working out of high school. What kind of emotions, just cognitions were you thinking about that you had to kind of weigh when deciding like, oh, I want to like pursue a master's, or I want to go to college, I want to reject the PhD and then start going into like the workforce?
No, yeah. I think that my parents didn't force upon like education on me as much as other families. Like I talk with my friends and they're like, oh, my parents want me to be a lawyer, a doctor, go into like those fields. My parents didn't really instill that in me. Like they just wanted me to get an education. They just wanted me to try my best. And I feel like I just had that intrinsic motivation, and I just saw how hard my parents worked, that I knew that education was the pathway to like mobility, to social mobility, and like earning more. And like my parents will always say like, oh, like we like didn't finish high school, like you should finish high school. And I knew that was like, I knew I was gonna finish, like, no, that was not like no doubt. And college was also like something that I knew like I was gonna do, like from the get-go. Like I never debated a moment whether if I was going to college or not. I knew I was going to. And my parents, they straight up told me, they were like, it's okay if you didn't go to college. You could have also just gotten a job straight out of high school. We just want you to do something, not be like a couch potato in the house, like, but I knew that it's just hard to get a good job with just a high school diploma. I knew, like, okay, so I knew I was gonna go to college and do get a bachelor's and go to work. That was like, I guess, the mentality, so I could finally start earning money and like also help my parents out. And for me, like, that was just a natural progression in my life. Like I loved school, and I was still like figuring out what to do. And honestly, even like going, like applying to college, I was debating what to study, and psychology was the only thing that really, like, I felt passionate and like fascinated me, just to learn how people's behaviors and thoughts stem from and all that. And so like I didn't really think like, oh, what career is more profitable, or like, oh, like what yeah, like, oh, what major should I go into, or like what do I want to be. Like I didn't even get that far to really think financially what was going to come after I got this bachelor's in psychology, I guess. I guess I was just trying to take it one thing at a time, because during that time I was just trying to get into college and do everything right and get the application process going. But yeah, now like during college I was like, oh, like what am I gonna do with this psychology degree? Should I do more schooling, because that's apparently what you do most of the time with a psychology degree. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I could do a PhD, I could be like a or school psychologist. And fortunately, my parents started getting a little better financially. And for me, like, that kind of gave me, like, a relief. Like, okay, like, so I could pursue what I want to pursue in a sense. Like, yeah, so I guess I didn't feel a pressure yet, like, to really help them out as much as I did, like, during high school, or, like, in the middle of, like, or the beginning of college. Because they even didn't know if they were able to help me, like, support me throughout college, since I was going to move to LA, and that's a little expensive. We all know that the cost of living ain't great. No, yeah, I guess a lot of emotions for me were like, I didn't like asking my parents for their financial help, because it just felt like, oh my gosh, they're barely struggling to, like, make ends meet. And like for me, I was like I hate asking for their help. But they knew how much education mattered to me, and they were like, you know what, Areli, like, we'll do whatever it takes for you to meet your goals. You know, they're very supportive of me. They didn't care, whatever it took, you know. And yeah, like I said, it didn't pressure me to do a certain career. They're like, really, do what you want, do what you need to do. And even when it came down to this PhD, they were really like, you know, if that's what you like to do, like schooling and like what you study, then go for it. Like don't worry about us. But I do worry about that, just because, like I said, PhD is pretty long. 5-year commitment, and cleaning houses is a very laborious, and like it's very hard. Like, I know, like, my mom started struggling with her knees, and I was like, like, I don't want something like to happen to her, like, out of nowhere, like catch me off guard, and I'm like studying too. And so I feel like that made me like kind of a little apply pressure on me, like, just because my parents are getting like a little older, and what the profession they do is not, it takes a toll on your body. And so so I guess like a lot of factors in my decision of like what to pursue, like a professional career path or like more schooling, that did my parents' situation like drove me to also like go into professional setting. But there's a lot, I guess, to think about and grapple when making these certain decisions as a Figley student. But I'm very fortunate to have my parents' support, and just I know that they're always there for me. And schooling could definitely still be in the future when I'm more sure about what I want to do and if I want to continue doing that. So yeah, but for now, like the workforce seems what I'm gravitating towards, just to start paying off these loans, I guess. not push them off, but also just to like be more financially stable and like to some sense start saving up and sending some money to my family.
I feel like it's like scary to be in a place where just like, yeah, let me just push off these loans until like a little later to do like more schooling, but then you're just like this giant like massive like money is just like, or debt is just like hovering above you.
No, yeah, and I feel like debt is such a scary thing because I've never had that much insane amount of debt until I came here and finished my master's. But someone did told me, like, you know, that's good debt. Don't think about it as bad. Like, you're investing in your education. That should not, like, it'll get paid for. But, you know, right now it's your education. You know, that's something that's very valuable to you. You're not wasting it on, like, a lavish car, you know.
What motivates you to like finish school? What motivated you to finish school? Like, what was the motivation, and what would you give someone that's struggling right now in school advice to finish school? Like, especially like for my background, I'm also Mexican, and like a lot of Hispanics here, like it's not like struggle, but like we need like more motivation to like push, even though like we know we don't have that money to like finish, so we need to like go and like every time time is running, and like how do you like think about that? Like, how do you motivate yourself?
Yeah, well, I think motivation, it's a hard one, just because I do think, even I see it in my siblings. Like, it's me plus my sister and my two younger brothers. My brother, who's 16, he is definitely having trouble like staying motivated in school, and I tell him like, oh, like to keep going, like just to like persevere. If you need help, I'm here, like use your resources, like you're not by yourself. And he just tells me like, oh, I'm not you, Areli, like, and I'm like, what is that supposed to mean? You're not me. Like, I guess he sees me as like this person who like really like pushes forward and tries to like do their best, or I don't know how he perceives me, but
Like you like made it in a sense.
Yeah,
like
I
you
guess,
already like passed everything.
yeah, like, oh, like oh, like I'm not, he thinks he's not gonna go to like great schools like I did.
Yeah, I have a sister too that she's like 15, and she's like in high school right now, and she like also needs like motivation because I'm the oldest of 4 sisters, and my other sister also goes to college right now, and like she's like, well, why am I have to go to school if like I already have 2 sisters going to college, and like yeah, that's like the thing, like you already made it, like why do I have to also do it?
No, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, similar to my brother's mentality. He's like when you and my other sister, she's like 23. She graduated from UC Davis. He's like, oh, like you guys like it's okay. Like, our family's great now. Like, you guys already like accomplished everything. Like, my parents like probably didn't even like dream about, but like we did it, you know. I think what's important, what I've realized with my brother, I guess, not to push him to do the things I did. Like, I took like 9 AP classes in high school and like try to do a sport and like get involved in all these extracurricular activities and become like president in some of these clubs, and yeah, we were like, you know, over the top. Yeah, you know, like I was all that, but like I see like I have to motivate him in a different way. Like, he doesn't want to do all that. He wants to do something that he likes to do. So and I told him like, oh, I guess I gave him my suggestions, which were like, you know, you don't have to do as many AP classes as I did. You know, you could do like a couple, and like only the ones you're interested in. Like, AP psychology, do you find that interesting? Like, do that, or like, oh, math, like some like AP calc, or I don't AP stats, whatever math, or like what subjects he feels are his strongest, that he feels he could succeed in. I tell him, go, like, challenge yourself in those subjects, like go do that. And also they also have this program called CART, or, well, it's like more like hands-on, like, so they don't have to go like to class. Well, they do have to go to classes, but it's like a program outside of their high school, and basically it gives them more like life skills in a sense. Like, oh, they get to like learn more about like, oh, engineering or robotics, stuff like that they could explore. And so that's how he was able to stay a little more motivated, just because like, oh, like I'm finding stuff that I like to do and all that. And he knows that he has 2 older sisters that could help him out. Like, he always seeks our guidance and assistance, whether that's like to like, oh, like, can you help me with this math homework, or like, oh, what does it mean by this assignment, or like, or just registering for classes and what our input is and what he should do. And yeah, I guess the key is like not to pressure the person. Also, motivation is like, so like, you know, you have external and internal motivation. You know, sometimes like it's only like up to you how much you really want to accomplish this goal. But also another like external factor is the people you surround yourself with. And I do think I stayed very motivated because of my friend group and the people I surrounded myself in high school and throughout like college. Like, we were all, well, especially in high school, like all my friends, we were like nerds. We were nerds, really focused in high school. We didn't even know there was like parties going on around us. Like, what? People were going to house parties and drinking? What? Like, I didn't even know people like drank before they were 18. I was like, what? That's crazy. And then so like I did what my friends did, because they had the blueprint of the pathway to go into higher ed. They knew like, oh, we get good ACT scores, do all these extracurricular activities. Like, I got all my information from them too, like what to do and how to succeed, I guess. And no, yeah, motivation, yeah, that's, I could go all about motivation too, with the psychology lens. But I do think it's definitely who you surround yourself with. And I did notice that too with my brother, because I'm like, okay, like, who are you surrounding yourself with? Who's your friend group? Yeah, no wonder you don't feel like as like, I guess, ambitious in a sense, because, oh, you only want to be with your friends in the classroom. Okay, like, no. And then he goes like, oh, well, I have one smart friend who's telling me to do this and that. I'm like, okay, well, stick around with it. But so, I mean, it's interesting how much like friends, especially during high school, during your adolescence, like, friends have the most, your peers have the most impact on how you kind of manage life, in a sense, and how you go about it. And that also affects motivation, of course. Mm-hmm. But yeah, having mentors too. Oh my gosh, how did I miss that? Mentors, like, in high school. Like, I remember I also, even though my high school counselor couldn't help me with filling out the financial aid application, she believed in me a lot. She told me, like, Areli, like, you're smart. I believe that you could get into like these big schools. Like, you could, like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And she really believed in me. And just having an adult figure really like push you to do your best. You know you're capable of so much more than you think. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really like comforting and like uplifting too, to have like someone. I feel like my counselor also was someone who like really like pushed me and like believed in me too, and it was also like really comforting. I feel like it might like the whole like motivation thing and like really like pushing yourself to do like all you can to try to get into like college. Might also be like a birth order thing maybe, because I feel like I'm also an older sibling, and I think when I look back, it's I remember like back in like fourth grade or something where I remember like talking to my parents and then having the realization where or I like my like goal or responsibility is to kind of just like pave the way for like my sisters, because at that point I realized that my parents couldn't help me with like school or anything because they also went up to like they didn't finish high school. But it was up to me to like kind of pave the way, figure out everything, help translate for my parents during like medical appointments, everything, figuring out just like college in general, and just like kind of make like pushing through, carving a path for myself. And I think because of that, that's where I like used to draw like, or I still draw like a lot of like my motivation from, just knowing that like I have like two younger sisters who are like behind me as I like plow the way basically. But then I also thought that your point about like not really like pressuring your like younger siblings, if they don't want to like pursue the same path, essentially, because I think looking back, I was at the mindset of if I have the blueprint for like getting into Penn, getting into like a good school, essentially, like I need to make sure that my sisters also like follow that blueprint. And I think because of that, I probably put like a lot of pressure on them, uh, because I was like, this is how you do it. This is how everyone does it. You take like all as many APs as you can. You do like as many extracurriculars. I think that's kind of like the mindset I was taking in, and kind of projecting onto my sisters as well. And I feel like my parents, seeing like I got into Penn, like they were also like pushing that as well, which then resulted in like a lot of pressure. So I think, I don't know, it's like an unfortunate like side effect of being like the oldest, where you have just like a lot of motivation to like push through, and then maybe like because I don't want to overgeneralize for like every younger sibling, but because like you're the oldest, you like know the way already, trying to like share that with your younger siblings or like cousins as well.
No, yeah, because like us as older siblings, I guess all of us are in the room are older. Yeah, we know how to get this far. That's the only way we know how to get this far. So when like my brother is questioning like, oh, do I even want to go to college? I'm like, whoa, what do you mean if you even want to go to college? He's like, oh, well, my friend isn't going. I'm like, whoa, doesn't mean you shouldn't go either. It's like, it's really like, oh my gosh, like what other path or way is there for, I don't know. And then I think like, okay, like there are like technical vocational stuff that he could do that doesn't require him to like go to school or
Like
or
a
four-year
traditional
college.
4-year college.
Yeah, so I'm just like thinking like, okay, like I shouldn't pigeonhole him into just my way, not my way or the highway, I should also like listen to him and kind of not apply him the pressure, just because my sister, since we were so close in age, I was able to pressure her, and like she also wanted to be like me, so it was like easy for her to follow my footsteps, and like and she basically now she's gonna go into a school counseling program and get her master's in that, so she could be a school counselor. So yeah, she followed my footsteps. So it's like seeing like him not doing the same is like, oh, okay, like now I'm faced with this like interesting, just I guess challenge in a way, just because like, oh, I thought we all had the same goal here, like our parents came to this country and we should go to this 4-year college and like make it. But yeah, it's interesting.
But Smith, I was curious if you also like had the similar like, experiences as like a older sibling for like 3 younger siblings too.
Yeah, so I didn't have like as much resources as in our school, but I tried to go into a lot of AP classes, and after that, like my counselor, she was a really bad counselor. She told me, I don't think you should apply to these colleges. But I was like, you know what? I'll just shoot my shot. And like the only like Ivy League I applied to was UPenn, and then when I opened like that letter, I was like, you see, I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like proved her wrong.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, did you think like, oh, maybe I should apply to these other Ivy Leagues?
Yeah. I did apply to Yale, and I got waitlisted, but it's okay. And I also got into John Hopkins.
Oh, whoa,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So I was like, should I just pick UPenn or John Hopkins? So I was like, I'll pick UPenn. Yeah. And my other sister, she also was like 1 year old younger than me, and she went to the University of Boston in the business school.
I love that.
So yeah, now it's just my other sister, and since we're near like the Yale like the school of like the University of Yale, like we help. She's part of like a program from Yale, so like it's like right there. Like now that I'm like an Ivy like League person, like I have the blueprint, like you said, Peter. Like I was like, okay then, let's see if we could like help my sister Jessica, that's her name, to like help like like to be there for her and like to help her with programs, since she's very into like humanities, and like there was a program in this summer, and she's like, well, I need help, so we just helped her, and we pushed her to apply to the program and stuff. So I was like, yeah, like it was like, it's very difficult when you're like a older sibling, and like you don't have the resources, and you have to like search them for yourself. And like, yeah, that's what happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to also jump off like the last thing you said, where I think it's difficult not only because you don't have like initially when you're like plowing through, carving your own path, you don't have like the resources that other people might have because you're like on your own basically. But also like once we've made it, I think I don't know if it's just like a me experience, but when I like am also like giving like advice to like my sisters or like my younger cousins who also like want to like follow like a similar path, I feel like I have, because I want them to like achieve like the most like the highest they can, I have like to also stress about on top of already being at like Penn and doing everything. So because of just like every like my for context, my two younger sisters are one is a senior right now in high school, and then the other one is a freshman right now in college. And like the previous 2 years, it was just like going through the college application process again and again.
Yeah.
And they didn't have their counselors were also not that good. They didn't have that as good of a guidance counselor as I did. And also like my parents, like even though like I went through like the college application process, my parents still didn't really know anything. So it ultimately like fell onto me to help guide them through the application, and then like read their essays, make sure they're also like on top of everything. I think having to kind of like balance just like my coursework at Penn, everything else I'm doing, while also being like a second like kind of guidance counselor or like parent for like my younger siblings at home, to ensure that they're able to like make it as well, adds like extra stress that I feel like also like isn't like talked about like as much, because like once you make it through, you're not done. Everyone needs to come through.
No, that's so true, because that's my experience too with my sister. Like, even just recently, last in December when I was finished, it was at the midst of finals week, and she asked me like, Areli, can you read my essays for my master's program? And I'm like, oh, it's literally finals week, but you know what? I want you to get it and good.
Yeah, like you have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm like, oh, I literally devoted like 2 hours every day as I was trying to finish my like during finals week. And yeah, it's like definitely added stress and pressure, because I'm like, oh, I'm trying to take care of myself and also do well in my classes and get this degree done, but also I want to make sure my sister, her essays are great, stellar, so she could like get into her master's program. and become a school counselor. So no, I totally get that. And just making sure, and even just throughout college, like I know my sister, she always tells me like, oh really, like look over my essays. Like she's not a strong writer, and no, yeah, she definitely like wants me just to check. It's only like the important essays at least, just to, like, oh, like look at my final essay, like what do you think? Or yeah, it's like, so it always like, yeah, it is like an added task. In even though you thought you were done with like, oh, yourself or yeah, but you still have like your siblings to look after and make sure like they reach like their fullest potential, you know. And yeah, so I definitely resonate with what you said, and I still keep on doing that with like the youngest. Well, now I feel like my brothers are now relying on my sister too. Since she's in California now and living with them for now. But yeah, so I guess some weight has left off my shoulders, but not from her though. From her, she's still asking me, like, yeah, and she still continues to ask me like the whole process. She got accepted to the school, and like, oh, the financial aid process, how is it different, because now she's going to California and not like, well, here out of state, so now it's different for her, and how to apply that process and how to maneuver it. So I'm also learning with her because I didn't go to a master's program in California. I don't know what's the process like over there. So yeah, so it's like another, the grind doesn't end, you know. Like we look after our siblings, and yeah, that's the job of being the oldest and
older sibling.
Yeah. But you know, I love it though. Even though it's like the most too. Yeah, right. It's like it can be so stressful. Like, oh, okay, so juggling so many things. Like you're another parent to them, but you know, because you do it because you love them.
Yeah.
And you want them to succeed.
Cool older siblings.
Yeah, cool older siblings. Yeah. And I taught her to say, hey, thanks to me, girl. Don't forget it.
Yeah. Shout out to all the older siblings.
Yeah.
Maybe like middle siblings too. I feel like they don't get enough love.
That's true. Yeah. But older siblings are the MVPs. Yeah.
Last thing. If you could give a piece of advice to your younger self, any piece of advice, it doesn't have to be related to being figly. What piece of advice would you give?
To not be afraid to ask people for questions. I think, I don't know if it's also an older sibling mindset or also the figly mindset of like, oh, you think like you doing it on your own and like just managing like, oh, trying to find just trying to juggle things by yourself. But I think like speaking up and just asking someone for assistance is important in whatever way whatever question you might have. Whether that's just like a classroom question or a bigger question, personal question. Yeah, because I definitely feel like my younger self was too afraid, or I guess too like intimidated to look like I didn't know anything, or just like, oh, people aren't gonna help me, they don't know my situation, or like they don't know what I'm going through or whatever, or you think like you could do it all on your own because that's what you're used to doing. I think and I'm still learning that, to be quite honest.
Me too.
Yeah, just to like it's okay to ask somebody, like anyone, if you're struggling. Like you don't have to struggle by yourself. And yeah, just like daily reminder.
Definitely great piece of advice. I feel like a lot of people we've interviewed also had like a similar response, not being afraid to really ask questions, because I feel like me growing up, I was also like, oh, I don't need to ask someone, I can do it myself. And then like when it comes down to it, I ultimately like wasn't able to do it myself, and then faced like the consequences for all of that. But asking questions.
No, yeah, or just asking like people for like something that I've learned from Penn students. it's like asking for an extension, asking to make up a grade, like all those stuff like they don't tell you, like the professors tell you, oh, you can do that, right? No extensions, no like get an assignment for a better grade or anything. But like I think just asking for that, like, and just being honest with the professor, like I guess hopefully some professors do, like they'll give it to you. And I thought that was crazy for me to find out, like, oh, like I thought they were so strict on there, like there's no policy. And yeah, but yeah, so not being scared, if you need it, like ask for it, like don't be afraid, like
Yeah,
that
like,
extension or that grade.
yeah, like also, like when you like need extra help, like go to the professors or ask for their slides so that you can be ahead, and like all of that, like it's like a new experience. Like I was like an older sister, like I never asked for help, like anything, but now when I come to the school, like I ask for help. And like I'm like, it's okay to ask for help. It's like you're not like dumb or anything. It's just like you want to learn more, you want to be there and like learn more, like to have better grades. Yeah.
Yeah, be shameless. Even if you think like the question's like so absurd, no, be shameless. Like who cares? Like
They're here to help.
yeah, they're here. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you again, Areli, for joining us today. We really appreciated your time taking your time to share all of your different experiences, all of your words of advice as well. Is there any way people could contact you if they really like resonated with your story and want to just like talk to you more for advice?
They can email me.
What's your email?
It's Areli Pizano, which is so ARELIPIZANO @hotmail.com. Yes, I still use Hotmail. Don't laugh at me.
Not the Hotmail. Awesome. So for those of you listening, you can reach Areli there. And if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to follow us on Instagram at the Figly Podcast and check out our website at figlypodcast.wordpress.com. For other episodes, you can find us on Spotify at the Figly Podcast. And if you have any other topics that you would be interested in listening to, feel free to message us on our Instagram. But yeah, thanks again, Areli, for joining us.